What's a time you turned a disaster into an unexpected victory? The wedding disaster. My wedding day was supposed to be perfect. All the planning, the flowers, the food, everything timed to the second. But on the morning of the wedding, the caterer called they had double booked and half the food was gone. Panic set in and my heart sank. I felt like crying, right there in my dress. I ran to the local market with my best man, frantically gathering ingredients, calling every baker, and borrowing extra tables and chairs from friends. I coordinated volunteers like a general directing troops. Somehow, by the time the ceremony started, it looked like nothing had gone wrong. The guests had no idea anything was off, and everyone raved about the food and setup. Looking back, that disaster forced me to organize and delegate in ways I didn't know I could, and my calm under pressure impressed not just my husband, but every single friend and family member there. What I thought would be a catastrophe became one of the most memorable, triumphant days of my life. The job interview fiasco. I once had an interview for a position I desperately wanted. I prepared for weeks, but on the day, I realized I had left my portfolio at home and my laptop died mid-presentation. I was terrified, thinking I had blown my only shot. Instead of panicking, I turned to improvisation. I used my phone to show relevant examples, spoke passionately about each project from memory, and even incorporated humorous anecdotes about the tech disaster to show I could handle stress. By the end, the panel was laughing with me, impressed by my adaptability. 2 weeks later, I got the offer. What I thought was an absolute disaster became the moment that proved I could think on my feet, turning failure into a victory that taught me more than any perfect interview could have. The day everything went wrong, and then somehow went right. Okay, so this still feels surreal to write about because it genuinely started as one of the worst days of my life. And if you had told me it would become one of the biggest turning points, I would have laughed in your face. Like, ugly laughed. But here we are. So picture this. I was supposed to give this presentation at work, huge deal, months of prep. My supervisor's supervisor was going to be there. Basically, the kind of meeting where you either impress everyone and your career levels up, or you screw up and you start updating your resume before lunch. Well, on the morning of everything went wrong instantly. My alarm didn't go off because apparently my phone decided 2% battery was enough to rest eternally. I woke up 40 minutes late, bolted out of bed, tripped on my cat who screamed like I stabbed him, and managed to slam my knee into the nightstand so hard I saw new colors. I hobble run to the kitchen, burnt my tongue on coffee so badly that I couldn't taste anything for a week, then spilled the same coffee down the only clean shirt I had left. I'm scrambling around like I'm in some slapstick comedy routine from hell. I finally get dressed, sprint to my car only to find one of my tires completely flat. Not low, not slow leak. Flat, sitting on the rim like it gave up on life. So now I'm sweating, stressed, smelling faintly of burnt Starbucks and panic. I call a rideshare. The dude shows up, but his car smells aggressively like Axe body spray and something unidentifiable. He also insists on giving me unsolicited relationship advice, even though I never mentioned having a partner. We hit traffic. Not slow traffic like apocalyptic biblical, someone must have angered a god traffic. A semi had overturned and blocked 2 lanes, and we basically moved 3 car lengths in 10 minutes. I swear I could hear my career slipping through the cracks. At this point, I'm late. Not, oops, I'm 5 minutes late, but I might as well email an apology now because I'm missing the first half of the meeting. Late, I get out early, pay the guy, and sprint the last 4 blocks to the office in shoes absolutely not designed for sprinting. I arrive soaked in sweat hair, frizzing like I'm being electrocuted, and my laptop bag's zipper breaks as I lift it, sending papers everywhere. Everyone turned to look at me, and I swear to you, I wanted to evaporate. But here's the plot twist. The person presenting before me had tech issues so bad that everyone was already frustrated and waiting. My disaster timing, literally perfect. The delay meant I wasn't actually late for my turn at all. Then another miracle, the tech team working on the projector messed something up, so the person presenting after me needed time to fix their slides, meaning the pressure on me was super low because everyone was just grateful. Something worked. I get up there, heart pounding, throat still burnt, absolutely sure I'm going to bomb. But something weird happened. Because I had already lived through every possible disaster that morning, I hit this zen-like, I literally have nothing else to lose mode. I was calm, weirdly calm. I cracked jokes about the commute and the tech issues, people laughed, and suddenly the room didn't feel threatening anymore. The presentation went flawlessly. Not because I was perfect, but because I stopped trying to be perfect. I was loose, real, improvising when something went slightly off instead of panicking. People loved it, like actually loved it. Afterward, the big boss told me it was the most natural, confident delivery he'd seen all year. I didn't correct him by saying I had achieved that confidence by mentally giving up on life 30 minutes earlier. 2 weeks later, I got promoted. 3 months later, I was given my own project team. And for the rest of the year, people kept referencing that presentation as the energy we need more of around here. So yeah, what started as a morning of pure chaos, the spilled coffee, the flat tire, the traffic, the tech failures turned into the moment my career unexpectedly launched forward. Now whenever things go horribly wrong, I remind myself that sometimes disasters are just extremely chaotic stepping stones. My worst breakup became the best thing that ever happened to me. I used to think the universe hated me. Honestly, I thought karma had me on some kind of blacklist. Because when my ex dumped me, he didn't just dump me, he detonated my entire life in the process. We'd been together 5 years, lived together for 3, and out of nowhere, one Tuesday afternoon while I'm chopping onions for dinner, he sits down at the kitchen table and says, "I think we've grown apart. I'm moving out tonight." Just like that. No warning, no argument, no lead up. I thought it was a prank at first, like he was about to laugh and say gotcha. But the man was already packing while I was still holding a half-chopped onion. Turns out he'd been planning it for months, quietly transferring money, slowly pulling away, emotionally checking out, but pretending everything was fine, so I wouldn't suspect anything or make it messy. Meanwhile, I was just living my life clueless, thinking we were okay. He took half our furniture, most of the kitchen items, and literally all the toilet paper. Who does that? What kind of villain packs up toilet paper during a breakup? I should have known then the universe was telling me to let him go. Anyway, I spiraled, not dramatically, like I wasn't throwing wine glasses or burning his hoodie in the sink, but internally, quietly. The kind of heartbreak where everything hurts and nothing makes sense, and even brushing your teeth feels like a chore you need emotional support for. I stopped eating actual meals and lived off cereal. I let dishes pile up. I slept on the couch because the bed felt too big and too cold. My friends tried to help, but honestly, nothing helped. I was just drowning slowly, hoping the universe had a point but not seeing one. Then, and this is where the disaster really begins, I got laid off 2 weeks later. Company downsizing. Not personal, not performance related, just horrible timing. My entire world collapsed in 14 days. Relationship gone. Stability gone. Future plans gone. I started applying to jobs like a maniac, 50 applications a day, sometimes more. Half the time in pajamas I'd worn for 3 days straight. I thought I was losing my mind. Then one morning, my friend dragged me to a small cafe I'd never been to. I didn't want to go. I wanted to sink into my couch like a depressed swamp creature. But she forced me, and thank God she did. Because the second I walked in, I saw a tiny flyer on the corkboard by the door. Local animal shelter, hiring no experience required. I don't know why it caught my eye. I had never worked with animals. My entire resume was office jobs, spreadsheets, emails, more spreadsheets. But something about it sparked like the universe whispering, "Try this." So I applied. Got an interview the next day. Got the job the day after that. My first week there was honestly healing in a way I can't even describe. Animals don't lie, they don't manipulate, they don't grow apart suddenly, or pack toilet paper out of spite. They tell you what they feel, straight up scared, happy, excited, unsure. And in helping them, something in me started patching back together. I learned how to feed newborn kittens, I cleaned stalls, I walked dogs who were so joyful, it made my chest ache, and I started to feel alive again. Like pieces of me were waking up after being numb for years. 3 months later, the shelter director pulled me aside and asked if I wanted to train for a management role. Apparently, I had a talent for organizing chaos, which honestly, after losing everything, felt like the one thing I was qualified for. 6 months after that, I was the assistant director. A year later, I was running the entire facility. I found meaning, I found purpose, I found a job that didn't drain me, it fed me. And the wildest part, one day my ex messaged me out of nowhere. Saw the shelter's new website, didn't know you were working there, looks like you're doing well. I didn't respond, not out of pettiness. I just genuinely had nothing left to say to someone who belonged in a past life. Sometimes disasters aren't punishments. Sometimes they're evacuations. The universe kicked me out of a life I had outgrown, so it could shove me into the one I was actually meant for, and I wouldn't go back for anything. The internship from hell that accidentally gave me my entire career. I swear on everything, I did not go into this expecting to be traumatized. I thought internships were supposed to be like helpful stepping stones, maybe a little boring, maybe a lot of coffee fetching, but normal. Mine was not. I got hired at a marketing agency downtown that had this weird family culture vibe, except it wasn't a family. It was a cult disguised as a startup. Everyone there lived and breathed work like their lives depended on it. I'm talking 12-hour days, unpaid overtime, group Slack messages at midnight, urgent brainstorms on Saturdays. I was too scared to say no to anything because it was my first serious job, and because I wanted to impress them, and because I genuinely thought I needed this to succeed in life. Spoiler, I absolutely did not. Anyway, my direct supervisor, we'll call her Liz, was one of those people who feeds off making others miserable in very polite, socially acceptable ways. She'd give me tasks she knew would take 7 hours, then ask for them in 2. Then she'd CC upper management on emails, checking in on me like I was failing her even though we both knew the deadlines were impossible. She once told me she liked my eagerness, which was hilarious considering I was 2 panic attacks away from passing out at my desk half the time. The disaster peaked when Liz made me stay until 11:30 p.m. one night because a client wanted a pitch deck updated with different stock photos. That was literally it. Nothing strategic, nothing creative. Just swapping out pictures. I missed the last bus home, had to Uber, could barely afford it. I cried in the car like a soggy piece of bread, but it wasn't until the next morning when she scolded me for looking tired that something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. Like a small crack in a dam, I realized this isn't how people are supposed to live. And also, these people do not care about me at all. So I did the first rebellious thing I'd done in months. I took lunch a full hour without asking permission. I went outside, sat by a fountain, ate my sandwich in peace, and for the first time in weeks, I actually looked at my surroundings, and I noticed a sign across the street. City College Continuing Education, Digital Design Programs. Something fluttered in me. Tiny. Confused but curious. I'd always liked design. Messing around with layouts, making dumb posters for friends, editing photos for fun. But I'd never taken it seriously because I grew up thinking creative jobs weren't real jobs. Still crying a little, still exhausted, I Googled the program on my phone. Affordable, flexible hours, night classes available. And before I could talk myself out of it, I applied, right there on that fountain ledge. 2 weeks later, I got accepted. 2 weeks after that, I quit my internship with a 2-sentence email. Liz tried to do her whole "we're disappointed in your lack of professionalism" routine, but I didn't even care. I was free. Cut to 3 months later, I was studying design, not working 12-hour days, not crying in Uber rides, actually sleeping, actually living, and I was good. Like really good. My instructors kept pulling me aside, telling me I had natural instinct and intuitive composition sense. which sounded insane coming from someone who once had a panic attack trying to choose fonts for a client deck at the agency. Fast forward again. One year, I built a portfolio, got freelance clients, started making actual money, and then this is the insane part. I got a job offer from a mid-sized creative studio that treated people like human beings. It pays double what the old internship would have paid me as a full-time employee. I have boundaries now. I have weekends now. I have a life now. The disaster that felt like it was crushing me, it was the universe kicking me out of a cage. I didn't realize I was locked in, and the wildest part. Last month, Liz emailed me asking if I would consider doing contract design work for the agency. At my convenience, I didn't even respond, but I did laugh for 3 straight minutes. The internship from hell didn't break me. It rerouted me right into the life I was supposed to have all along. The day my best friend humiliated me was the day my life finally started. Okay, so this story starts with me being a complete doormat. Like, I'm not even exaggerating, I was the kind of person who apologized when other people stepped on my foot. That level, I let people walk all over me because I was terrified of losing friendships. And the queen of that dynamic was my best friend, Maya. We'd been inseparable since high school, or I thought we were inseparable. Looking back, it was more like I was an emotional support human she used whenever she needed an ego boost or someone to drive her places. Anyway, the disaster hit during a group trip we took beach weekend, supposed to be relaxing and fun. I was excited because I had just gotten hired for a small position at a company I'd been dying to get into. Nothing fancy, but a huge deal for me the first night. We're all sitting around a fire pit drinking, talking about work. I casually mentioned I'd gotten the job offer. I wasn't bragging, I wasn't even saying it loudly, just sharing good news. And Maya smirked, looked me dead in the face, and said, "Wow, they must have been desperate. No offense." Everyone went quiet. A few laughed awkwardly, but I just sat there frozen, because she'd said stuff like that before, little digs, little insults, but never in front of people. Then she kept going, "Oh my God, don't get me wrong, I'm happy for you, but like you." At that company, I guess miracles happen. It felt like someone poured cold water down my spine. She humiliated me in front of all our mutual friends, and the worst part is nobody defended me. They stared into the fire or played with their drinks like they were watching a car crash and didn't want to admit it. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and cried silently until my eyes looked bruised. It wasn't even about the job anymore. It was the realization that I had surrounded myself with people who only liked me as long as I stayed beneath them. The next morning, something inside me snapped quietly, but decisively. I didn't yell, I didn't confront her, I just withdrew. I woke up before everyone packed my stuff, left half the food I bought in the fridge, and drove home without saying goodbye. And for the first time in years, I felt peaceful. I blocked Maya on everything, socials, phone, email, everything. I left the group chat. I muted every mutual friend. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it wasn't revenge. I was just done. The silence afterward was weirdly cleansing. I suddenly had so much time I hadn't realized I'd been pouring into relationships that drained me dry. So I used that time on myself. I started actually preparing for my new job, bought clothes that made me feel like an adult human, watched YouTube tutorials, practiced the software I'd be using. I was scared, but also kinda excited for the first time in forever. My first week at the new job. Incredible people were kind. People encouraged me. People treated me like I wasn't an idiot, which was honestly a brand new experience after years of Maya's jokes. I worked my ass off, showed up early, asked questions, learned fast and not exaggerating. 3 months in, I got promoted. They said they liked my initiative. They said I was easy to work with. They said I had potential. Every word felt like someone carefully smoothing out scars I didn't know existed. Then one afternoon, I ran into one of the girls from the trip at the grocery store. The awkward tension was so thick I could have buttered bread with it. She looked uncomfortable as hell. Then she goes, "So, Maya's pretty pissed at you." I just shrugged and said, "She should be more pissed at herself." The girl blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. Then she muttered, "She's been talking crap about you non-stop since you left." I laughed out loud, like really laughed, because I realized she needed me. She needed me small. She needed me insecure. She needed me as a target. Without me, she had nobody to dump her insecurities onto. The girl finally said, "Honestly, you seem better." And I said, "I am." 2 weeks later, I was promoted again. 6 months later, I was leading a small team. A year later, I became the youngest manager they had ever hired. And now, I make more than every single person in that beach trip friend group combined. The disaster being humiliated in front of everyone felt like my social life exploding. But it wasn't an ending. It was a cleansing, a reset button, a giant cosmic broom sweeping out people who were poisoning me slowly. If Maya hadn't tried to tear me down in front of everyone, I never would have woken up, never would have found real friends, never would have built a career I'm actually proud of. Sometimes life ends the wrong friendships for you by letting one horrible moment expose everything, and I'm so grateful it happened. Sometimes life ends the wrong friendships for you by letting one horrible moment expose everything, and I'm so grateful it happened. My brother tried to sabotage my freedom and accidentally fixed my entire life. This story starts in a place I never thought I'd admit publicly. I used to be terrified of my younger brother. Not in the physical sense, I'm bigger than him, older than him, should have been the one with the authority. But somehow he always had this power over me. Charisma mixed with manipulation is a dangerous combo, especially in someone who grew up being told he was gifted. My parents worshipped him. I'm not saying that lightly, they treated his achievements like he was a prodigy. Meanwhile, I was the steady, reliable one. The one who didn't cause trouble, the one they could forget about because I wouldn't complain. That dynamic followed us into adulthood in a way that makes my teeth clench thinking about it. The real disaster started when we both ended up living with our parents for a while. Me because my long-term relationship imploded and I needed to regroup. Him because he'd blown through all his money investing in things that would have been scams even to a toddler. One evening we were sitting in the kitchen and I told my parents I was thinking of moving across the country for a job I'd been offered. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a real start. Something stable, something mine. My brother, without missing a beat, said, "Are you kidding? You can't live alone. You fall apart if someone doesn't hold your hand." He said it while laughing, but it wasn't a joke. And my parents laughed along, like it was the most natural thing in the world to mock me for finally wanting independence. I felt something cave in my chest. Not break, just cave like the slow collapse of a building that's been unstable for years. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even defend myself. I just stood up, said okay, and left the room. But that okay wasn't defeat. It was the sound of something snapping into place. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing that my whole life I'd been told a story about myself that wasn't written by me. A story where I was incapable, weak dependent, the safe sibling who didn't threaten the golden child spotlight, and I realized I wanted out. So the next morning I accepted the job. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't discuss it. I didn't ask permission. I started quietly packing box by box, closet by closet, item by item. When my brother finally realized what I was doing, he panicked. Not because he cared about me. I'm convinced to this day he didn't, but because he was losing someone he could belittle whenever his own life felt like a mess. He followed me into my room and said, "You're seriously going without talking to us?" I said, "You made it clear last night that I shouldn't." He frowned, confused, like he couldn't understand why I wasn't playing my role. "You're being dramatic." But for the first time, I wasn't emotional, I wasn't angry, I was focused. I loaded up my car. I hugged my mom and dad, who both looked like I'd betrayed them simply by wanting a life. And I drove off with the sun setting behind me, the sky this kind of burning orange that looked almost symbolic. I cried halfway through the drive, but it wasn't sadness. It was this overwhelming mixture of fear and excitement and grief and relief, like shedding a skin that had grown too tight. The new job wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My apartment was tiny, but it was clean and quiet. I started walking every morning just to feel the air on my face without anyone's expectations weighing me down, and with distance, everything got clearer. I realized I wasn't the weak one. I had been carrying my family's emotional stability on my shoulders for years. I had been making myself small so my brother could feel big. The funny part, within 3 months of me leaving, my brother's life fell apart. He failed at another investment, lost his job, and had a meltdown bad enough that my parents called me asking if I knew what to do. For the first time ever, I said, "I can't help, I'm building my own life now." It felt incredible. Freeing, like finally stepping into sunlight after living in the basement for years. Fast forward to now, I've been promoted twice. I have my own friends, my own routines, my own happiness. My brother still resents me. My parents still don't understand. But that's okay. My peace isn't up for negotiation anymore. What started as a humiliating insult at the dinner table turned into the single biggest turning point of my entire life. He meant to hold me back. Instead, he launched me forward. And I don't think he'll ever understand that the day he tried to sabotage my freedom was the day I finally claimed it. The job interview meltdown that accidentally saved my entire career. So picture this. I'm in my late 20s, unemployed, panicking, and trying to pretend I'm a high-value candidate when my biggest achievement that year was fixing the Wi-Fi by unplugging the router. I had applied to this mid-sized tech company mostly because the job description said team player instead of rock star, which felt like a safe sign they weren't hunting for the next Elon Musk. Anyway, I show up to the interview 30 minutes early, which was already a mistake because it gave me too much time to overthink. The receptionist offers me water, and like an idiot, I try to unscrew the cap while maintaining eye contact. Why? The cap flies out of my hand, the bottle slips, and I end up spilling water across the floor, onto my pants, and stunning myself into silence like a malfunctioning robot. I tell myself, okay, disaster number 1, but recoverable. Narrator voice. It was not recoverable. When I finally get into the interview, the hiring manager asks the classic, dreaded, "Tell me about yourself." My brain panics and picks the worst possible option. I start trauma dumping about how I'd been laid off and had a rough year, and how I was really hoping for a fresh start, which probably made me sound like I was about to cry even though I wasn't yet. Then came the tech question, something really simple, something embarrassingly simple, and my brain answered confidently and wrongly, like the kind of wrong that goes into orbit. I saw their eyebrows raise, and at that moment I realized the job was gone. The interview was gone. My dignity, also gone. When they asked, "Do you have any questions?" I said no, stood to shake their hands, and because the universe wanted more slapstick comedy, I slipped on my still wet pant leg and did this terrifying, almost split motion that definitely pulled something in my left thigh. They gasped. I apologized 10 times. Then I hobbled out of the office convinced I would never show my face in that building again. I spent the entire afternoon spiraling. I genuinely thought that interview would be the disaster that confirmed I was failing at adulthood. But 2 days later, I got a call from the department director. I thought he wanted to tell me personally that I'd been rejected. Instead, he said, "Our hiring manager told us what happened, and honestly, we were impressed. You kept going." I was shocked. I told him it was the worst performance of my life. He laughed and said, "You were honest, you were human, and you didn't pretend. We need someone who can handle pressure without pretending everything is fine." They didn't hire me for the position I applied for. They hired me for a different one with better pay and a better team. Apparently, the way I handled the catastrophe showed them something I didn't even know I had: resilience, and I'm not gonna lie. Every time I walk past that reception desk, I still remember the water bottle incident and cringe so hard I fold in half internally. But that disaster, it was the biggest, weirdest, clumsiest victory of my career. How my car breaking down in the worst neighborhood led me to the best relationship of my life. I used to drive this 2003 Honda Civic that rattled like it had seen God and wasn't impressed. It overheated if I even looked at a hill too confidently. My friends begged me to get rid of it, but I kept saying I'd replace it next month, which I had been saying for 3 years. One night, I was coming home late from work, exhausted, hungry, mentally done. And right as I'm driving through this notoriously sketchy part of town, the temperature gauge spikes and the engine makes this awful grinding noise that sounds like a bear gargling marbles. Then the car dies. Silent. Lights out. No power steering. Nothing. I pull over on a dark side street and immediately start panicking. I'm alone. It's late. This is the kind of street where the buildings look abandoned even though they aren't. I call roadside assistance and they tell me it'll be over an hour. Great. Then this guy walks up. Hoodie. Backpack. Approaching fast. I freeze. My brain decides this is where I die. I crack the window like 2 centimeters because I'm a coward and I go, "I'm fine! My boyfriend is coming!" Note, I did not have a boyfriend. The guy stops and says, I'm not trying to be weird, but your car is smoking." I look and, oh God, it is. My engine is literally steaming like a deranged tea kettle. He asks if he can look under the hood. I'm terrified, but also stupidly polite, so I say, sure, but I stay ready to karate chop the air if needed. He opens the hood, takes one look and goes, "Your coolant hose is shredded. You're not driving this home." Turns out he was a mechanic. A real one. He even showed me his work ID, which I pretended to check carefully, even though I don't know what a mechanic's badge is supposed to look like. He offers to temporarily patch the hose so I can at least move the car to a safer area. He works on it for like 20 minutes using duct tape and zip ties like he's doing battlefield surgery. While he's doing that, we end up talking and talking and talking, not small talk either. Real stuff, life stuff, childhood stuff, relationship failures, hopes. He had this gentle way of speaking that made me feel calm in a place where calm should be illegal. By the time the tow truck arrived, I didn't want the conversation to end. We exchanged numbers. I told myself it was just to update him about the car. Yeah, right. He later helped me actually fix it. Then we got dinner. Then we got another dinner. Then he kissed me in the parking lot of an AutoZone, like we were starring in the world's most low-budget Hallmark movie. We've been together for 3 years now, and that death trap Honda, it broke down a final time last year, and he helped me tow it to a junkyard. I cried a little when they crushed it. Not because I love the car, I didn't, but because it legitimately broke my life at the exact moment I needed something new to start. So yeah. My biggest disaster of late night panic became the weirdest, most unexpected victory. It brought me the person I didn't even know I'd been looking for. When my house flooded and I accidentally started a business. So rewind to 2 years ago when my life was basically a Jenga tower of bad decisions waiting for one wrong move to collapse everything. I was broke, working part-time, and living in this old rental house my landlord refused to fix properly. The pipes were older than the Bible. I complained for months, but he kept saying everything was functional. Then one night I wake up to a weird hissing sound. I step out of bed, and my foot splashes. The entire hallway is an inch deep in water and rising like the Titanic's final act. I sprint to the kitchen and the sink pipe has exploded. Not cracked, exploded. A full geyser. I shut off the water, but the damage is already insane. I call the landlord and he says the sentence that almost made me combust. "Okay, but can it wait until tomorrow?" Sir, your property is turning into Atlantis. Anyway, I grab every towel, blanket, and sock I own and start sopping up water like my life depends on it. I'm crying. I'm swearing. I'm sweating. I'm slipping around like a baby giraffe on ice. I'm texting my friends this whole deranged play-by-play because if I didn't share the disaster in real time, I was going to scream. And here's where the unexpected victory comes in. One of my friends posts screenshots of my meltdown on her Instagram stories because she thinks it's hilarious. People start replying saying they've had similar disasters. People ask how I dried everything. People start sharing photos of their ruined stuff. Someone comments, You should start a cleaning side hustle. You're too good at this. I laugh at that. I laugh hard. Me? A cleaning business? I couldn't even afford matching socks. But deep down, something weird sparked. Because I realized I'm actually really good in crisis mode. I clean fast. I organize fast. I problem solve under insane pressure. My meltdown wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. So, partly as a joke, partly serious, I posted an Instagram story offering cheap, emergency cleanups. I got my first client the same day, then another. Then a friend asked me to deep clean their garage. Then a coworker wanted help with a move-out clean. Within 3 months, I had more clients than I could handle alone. Within a year, I hired 2 part-time helpers. Today, it's my full-time job. I have a van. I have a logo. I have repeat customers. I have savings for the first time in my adult life. And the landlord. I moved out. His house flooded again. He texted me asking if I knew any reliable cleanup crews. I sent him my business card and said, "Absolutely. We're available for emergency appointments." Never thought I'd say this, but that flood? Best disaster I ever lived through.